When AliExpress contacted me about sponsoring a video, I decided I wanted to show a different side to the store. The normie side. When we usually talk about AliExpress, it's in the context of weird and wonderful motherboards and super cheap Xeon CPUs. They are, after all, the one-stop shop for building cheap gaming PCs from old workstation chips, and if you want to find some mad scientists Frankensteining mobile CPUs and GPUs into desktop PCs, AliExpress is where you're most likely to find them. This, on the other hand, is a gaming PC that you might actually want to build for yourself. There are quality components, familiar brand names, modern platforms, and not a waifu or cute pet in sight. If you're watching this on or around the day of uploading, AliExpress are currently celebrating Singles Day with a week's worth of special offers from the 11th to the 18th of November 2024. There's up to 80% off select items in the Double 11 sale, and if you've never bought from AliExpress before, new users get free shipping and returns. Use my exclusive codes on screen now to bag yourself a discount on the items I feature in this almost all AliExpress build or anything else on the site. When putting together this PC, I intended to give myself a budget of under £900 before tax and shipping. However, I had to make a few sacrifices to actually get the video made in time, so I ended up spending a little over the odds or using parts I already had to hand. The theme for the build was the antithesis of my personal rig. That machine is a subtle blackout build with zero lighting, whereas this one is designed to be seen. Starting with the highlight of the build for me, the case is the TK3 from Johnsbow, and it's an impressively normal and very attractive fish tank style case, with dual chambers to keep the PSU separate from the rest of the PC, as well as give plenty of room to hide unsightly cables and stash the hard drive you're pretending you don't have. The design is reminiscent of brands like Height, only with a single curved piece of tempered glass held in by 4 thumb screws. It's not quite as premium as some of the more well-known marks. Only half of the PCIe blanks are individually screwed in, the rest are the break-off kind that you often find in cheaper cases. The thumb screws on the glass panel are the only thumb screws in the entire case, and the whole thing is fairly lightweight once the glass is removed. That being said, there's not a huge amount of flex in the steel, the top dust filter is magnetic, and we actually have a front panel USB-C connector. So if you're used to the kinds of cases David has bought from AliExpress in the past, this might be a pleasant surprise. My last criticism is the white finish has a slightly warm hue, so if you're looking to perfectly colour match with other white components, you might have a hard time. I could talk about the important stuff like the CPU and GPU, and I will, but first, you're probably wondering about that cooler. This is the Thermalright Frozen Vision, available in both 240 and 360mm and either black or white finishes. Thermalright are never one for releasing a single product when they can release 5, and this is as true of their AIO coolers as it is for their air coolers. There are a plethora of different models with different versions of LCD screens on the CPU block, but this one really caught my eye. The square LCD display has a curved glass panel and looks less like a readout on a submarine than some AIOs I've seen. It connects to a Motherboard USB 2 header via a USB-C connection and is controlled via some software available from the Thermalright site. The level of customization isn't breathtaking, but it's enough to slap a meme or a logo to placate your video sponsor, and you can display just about any important system data you'd care to think of. I'll admit, the reason I chose the cooler was for the aesthetic rather than any actual cooling requirements. The CPU in this build is the Ryzen 7 5700X3D, which was already reviewed on the channel recently. Although it's a couple of generations old at this point, it can still compete with, and sometimes even exceed AMD's newer AM5 CPUs in games. They're also remarkably cheap for what they offer. At under £130 before tax, you get 8 cores and 16 threads with 96MB of L3 cache. And due in part to the fact that you can't really overclock these things, heat isn't a major problem. I locked the AIO fans to about 30% in the BIOS, and I never saw temps go above 65 degrees in an 18-degree ambient room, and that was in a multi-threaded Cinebench test. As the case didn't include any fans, I bought 4 more Thermalright 120mm ARGB fans to match the AIO, 1 standard model for exhaust, and 3 intake fans with reverse blades. This means the RGB lighting and overall look of the PC isn't interrupted by support struts or wires from the back of the fan. They all daisy chain using standard 4-pin PWM and 3-pin RGB connectors, so configuring the lighting via software is easy. Connecting all the wires is the hard part. I said that the PC was mostly sourced from AliExpress, but there were a few exceptions. The V-Color DDR4 RAM kit isn't available anymore, but I already had it on hand, and it had a very AliExpress vibe to it, with the flat mirrored heat spreaders and RGB light strips on top. It has a 4000 MT XMP profile, but I've dropped it to 3600 CL16 for the sake of the CPU's memory controller. I've linked some other reputable looking sticks of DDR4 in the description, and if in doubt you can always go for a known brand like Kingston, Corsair or G-Skill. This specific motherboard is available on AE, but only second hand. There are new AM4 boards for sale from brands like from brands like Onda, but I figured the topic of Chinese motherboards was worth its own video, which I may look into making in the future, but I don't want to make any promises. In the meantime, this Asus Strix B550 can be picked up used for about £110 and has a few white and silver accents that fit the colour scheme pretty well. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a USB-C header, so that port I mentioned earlier is sadly going to waste here. The final part I couldn't pick up on AliExpress was the graphics card. It's not that AE doesn't sell graphics cards. In fact, I intended to get the Gunir RK770 in white, but unfortunately when it turned out that it wouldn't arrive in time for the video, I had to find something closer to home, so my short notice substitute is this Gigabyte Eagle Ice RTX 4060. It's a triple fan version to help fill out the case a bit better, and the white shroud fits the theme nicely. But my feelings about Lovelace haven't changed. You probably shouldn't buy one right now, especially not with Blackwell around the corner. Look forward to a full review of this GPU once the RTX 5060 comes out. The power supply is an RM850X gold-rated modular unit that was provided by Corsair to feature in a PC build, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that it's also available to buy from AliExpress. This one includes a faux braided set of cables complete with combs, as well as a 12VH power connector for newer graphics cards. My graphics card has the more sensible 8-pin PCIe connector, but it's the thought that counts. I could spend the remainder of the video just shooting B-roll of this thing, but I'm sure you want to see some benchmark data, so without further ado. On the subject of good things coming from China, Black Myth Wukong seemed like a fitting choice for this PC's first benchmark. At 1440 high with DLSS upscaling set to 50%, the game still looks great, and it's a smooth 60 plus most of the time, averaging 72 FPS with lows of 57. Adding medium ray tracing is an option if you're happy with a 30 to 40 FPS experience, and it does improve the appearance of shadows and reflections, but that frame rate might not be to everyone's taste. Cyberpunk is an evergreen test of both graphics cards and CPUs, and I found a good balance of quality and performance at 1440p using the Ultra preset and DLSS balanced. Unfortunately, the RTX 4060 doesn't have enough VRAM for ray tracing above low or maybe medium, but I'm of the opinion that anything below Ultra RT isn't worth the cost. Forza Horizon 5 is a super smooth experience at 1440 Ultra with DLSS quality, averaging 115 FPS. I'd like to have tried using some higher settings and turning off DLSS. Alas, this was the best combo of settings I could find that didn't give an immediate VRAM warning. I'm not pining for the RK770, honestly. God, why did I choose all these VRAM heavy games? Almost like I'm trying to make a point. Anyway, The Last of Us also puts an unusual amount of stress on the CPU, especially for a single-player game without an open world to compute. Hence why it's good to have something like the 5700X 3D on board. At high settings, again, Ultra was out of the question, and with quality DLSS, the game can manage a solid 70 FPS on average, with lows of 54, caused mainly by the occasional loading stutter. Unusually for a Ryzen CPU, Starfield actually performs very well on the 5700X 3D, which can be important in this game's city areas. However, the RTX 4060 is a tad underpowered, and even at medium settings and DLSS quality, it's only barely able to provide a 60 average and spends a lot of time below that line. It is, of course, Bethesda's fault, but there's no denying that I would have had a better result from a better GPU here. On the positive side, God of War Ragnarok is just the kind of game you'd hope would play well on this rig. And it does. At 1440 high with quality DLSS, the average is a very acceptable 73 FPS, and lows only dip slightly below 60 on occasion. If you want to extract the maximum possible performance for Black Ops 6, you could drop the resolution to 1080p and reduce settings and upscaling to their lowest values, but I wanted to retain some degree of image quality. To that end, I went with 1440p with both the quality and DLSS set to balanced, and that still saw an average of over 100 FPS. Don't forget to check out the links in the description below to pick up any of the parts featured in this build. Also, if you're planning on getting some of your Christmas shopping done on AliExpress, you can join my team as part of the Team Up cashback promo and earn store credit towards future purchases when you place your order. The more you buy, the more you save.
The more you buy, the more you save.
Oh, and before I forget, there's a thing on the mobile app where you shake your phone and you can win up to £1,111 in shopping credit. I don't know, I just go on the app to play their Candy Crush knockoff. Yes, I'm approaching level 1400. No, I'm not an addict. I can give up whenever I want. AliExpress isn't quite ready to shrug off its reputation as being a place for picking up the weird and wonderful and insanely cheap. I don't think it particularly wants to. I mean, where else can you pick up some of this stuff? However, it's nice to know that, as a regular, normal consumer who isn't someone with a YouTube channel looking to grab clicks any way we can, that you can actually use them to build something normal. Thanks to AliExpress for sponsoring the video. Thanks for watching. Kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.